everyone, welcome back to the Stitches and Scribbles podcast. My name is Erin, and it feels so weird to be back and doing a full-length podcast. I've been doing Vlogmas for the past month, I guess, and although it felt super weird to take a 3-day break between filming Vlogmas and doing a podcast, it still feels very strange to be back to doing a long form video, but really happy to be here. Thank you for all of you who tuned in for Vlogmas and watched those episodes. I really had fun making them. But yeah, we're just going to dive right into the podcast. And part of what I wanted to talk about today is some failed projects that I now have to figure out what to do with, and B, some of my goals for not just January but for 2023. I am filming this on December 30th, so the day before New Year's Eve, although my goal is to film podcasts the Monday before they go up, and right now my plan is to have podcasts go up on Wednesday. So this one is pre-filmed a little bit, but it's just because I have a busy week next week coming up. Speaking of which, we're going to go back to having weekly podcasts here on the channel now that we are in our own house and have a little bit more control over the schedule and the amount of noise that's being made and what other people are doing in the house. It felt like a good opportunity to bring back the weekly podcast instead of them being monthly. So you can look forward to a lot more Stitches and Scribbles podcast episodes. And my goal is to release those on Wednesdays and have normal videos come out on Fridays. So hopefully we can stick to this 2 uploads a week schedule. That also means that I'm going to be doing some kind of different videos for my Friday videos. As I've talked about previously, both in Vlogmas and on podcast episodes, I want to do some kind of home decor videos, which is not anything I've done before on this channel. But I figured I'd take advantage of the fact that we do have a new house that requires some DIY projects to get it to the way we want it to be. But also just kind of branching out to maybe some non-crafty videos. I have one coming up later this month that is not craft related, which is kind of weird. But I pre-filmed that back when I was still living at my parents' house, so you'll get another video from our room in that house. But let's start first with some failed projects. So if you watched Vlogmas, towards the end of the Vlogmas season, it wasn't that I was running out of projects, but it was I had found new projects I wanted to start and didn't have all of the materials for them, so I had to wait for materials to arrive before I could get started. One of those things I wanted to do was to start knitting a pullover, and I decided on the Something Cozy sweater, and I'll come back to that in a few minutes. But I really wanted to make that sweater, and I didn't have the right needle size. So I placed the order for the needles, but I was still feeling that itch to start a new project. So I decided, well, I have tons of scrap yarn in some color palettes that I've split it up into. Why don't I just try making a sweater with the scrap yarn? So I decided on a crochet raglan design. It was from MJ's Off the Hook design. If you just search top down raglan on YouTube, top down crochet raglan on YouTube, it's one of the first videos that pops up. So I decided to follow that pattern, at least to get it started. I knew I wanted to alter some things about it because the original sweater in the video is very cropped, and I did not want a cropped sweater. I actually wanted a really long sweater so that I could wear it with leggings and just have it be cozy around the house. So it did achieve the goal of giving me something to do while waiting for my new needles to arrive. However, I made some mistakes. So first of all, in looking at the pattern, even though I don't think gauge was listed on the pattern, it definitely wasn't listed in the video, but I should have known from watching the video that my gauge looked very different from the tutorial. In the tutorial, her stitches were like tighter and closer together, and mine were definitely far apart. But I was like, it's double crochet, I'm using a different yarn than her, my yarn is probably heavier, my tension's probably different, like it'll be fine. The goal is to make an oversized sweater, so it doesn't really matter. So I made because there's the video tutorial and then there's a free written version of the pattern on her website. So I was following the free written pattern, and I decided to make a size 2XL from the written directions. I usually wear a 1X to a 2X anyway, but I wanted to make sure it was on the bigger side because, again, the goal was to have an oversized sweater. So I really enjoyed the process of crocheting it. I've never done a raglan sweater before, so I was enjoying learning how to do the increases along the like shoulder seams to create those raglan sleeves. I didn't have any problems with like splitting the body and doing the sleeves and doing the like join as you go cuffs. What I realized as I got towards the end is that I had never tried on the sweater after the first couple rows where I was checking to make sure if my head fit through the neck hole. And I quickly realized after trying it on, after I wove in all the ends, like did all of that stuff, I made it too big and not in a good way. So I will kind of hold it up here. So if I just had it on like this, it looks cute. The scrappy design is definitely very different, but that's, you know, what I was going for. However, the yoke on this sweater is gigantic. I can't even like scoot back enough to show you what happened here, but the part where the yoke splits for the body and the sleeves is like at my waist. So it made the sweater very like batwing dolman sleeve looking, and not in a good way. It looks like I did it wrong. So I'm not really sure what to do with this now, although it did keep me occupied for a couple days. So it achieved that goal of giving me something to do while I was waiting for the needles for my Something Cozy sweater. And it is wearable. Like, I just can't like raise my arms while wearing it because the whole like bottom of the sweater comes with it. So when I originally wanted like an oversized scrappy sweater, the idea came to me because my basement is so cold and we had that like really awful cold spell for a couple days. So I was like, oh, I'll just make like a big pullover that I can keep in the basement and like throw it on over my pajamas when it's like cold in the morning and I come down here to start work, because I tend to wake up really early while my husband's still asleep, so I usually just come and hang out in the basement. But because it's first thing in the morning and it's a basement and we live in Wisconsin, it's usually very cold first thing in the morning. So I can still wear it for that purpose of just like sitting and knitting while it's super, super cold in the morning. But it's not something that I can like wear out of the house because it looks ridiculous. So either way, it's going to stay in my basement for now. I might frog it eventually and just do a different sweater pattern. I was thinking maybe I could try knitting a raglan because I've never done that before either. And I did like doing the crochet raglan, but check your gauge, people, or like try things on as you go. Don't get all the way done with the sweater and then realize that you did something wrong. So that was a learning experience. I'm still glad I did it. Just like my first pair of socks that I made during Vlogmas ended up a little bit too big, but that was fine because I learned how to make a sock. So I learned how to do a crochet raglan sweater. I just did it wrong. So that's failed project number 1. I do like how the stripes and the colors paired together, but this is just, it's just bad. Like, there's no other way to look at it. So that will live down here as an emergency sweater until I decide to frog it. My second failed project, and I need to get it from down here, is a baby blanket. So I also was working on this blanket during Vlogmas, as kind of my like couch project. And I was making it using the Big Twist Hush yarn from Joann's. This is a very like soft, bulky weight yarn, and I think they meant for it to be like for home decor projects. I'm just going to scoot my camera down a little bit because that angle is driving me nuts, and that one is driving me more nuts. Is that better? Maybe that's better. Yeah, I think that's a little better. So anyway, I was working on this baby blanket, and as you can see, it got fairly large. However, I hate it, and I don't want to gift it to the person I'm gifting it to because it doesn't look right. Like, I tried to like even out the edges by doing like a crochet border, but this yarn just, it doesn't stretch in the way that a baby blanket should. The edges turned out like very wavy, wrinkly. It's not as obvious when I'm holding it up, but maybe at the bottom. It just warped really strangely. And in addition to that, it feels very heavy, which makes me think it's not ideal for a baby blanket anyway, because it's going to be too heavy to manipulate. Like, it feels almost like a play mat than instead of a baby blanket. So that one, I do like the colors. I did olive green, and there's like an ivory that I was planning on doing a trim with. I'll use it for something else. Like, clearly it was meant for home decor projects, and those colors appear in our house decor decently often. So I can definitely use it for something else, maybe make some pillow covers, stuff like that. But that does mean that I now have like 1 month from yesterday to finish a baby gift for this friend's baby shower, which also, now that I've shown the like ruined one, if you are my friend who's having a baby shower in January, do not watch this video. Like, just don't watch podcasts until after January. I don't think she does, because she's not a knitter, which is why I can get away with doing like yarny gifts for her. But on the off chance she's bored and found my YouTube channel, this is not the video for you. Just don't watch until February. But anyway, I now need to come up with something else and finish it in less than a month, because her baby shower is January 29th and today is December 30th. So I've got less than a month, but I have gotten started on a replacement project, and I of course had to make my new options like more complicated than the original one, so that's fun. But I decided that I wanted to make a baby sweater. I think I was feeling bold after my failed crochet sweater. Not sure why. But I decided I wanted to make a baby sweater. So this is just the back panel. And I am making it not in newborn sizes. I'm making it for like, I think the original pattern said it's for 12 to 18 months, but I went down a needle size, so I'm thinking it's more like a 9 to 12 month size is what I'm going to get. But it's just going to be a basic baby sweater. It's not a raglan. It's front panel, back panel, and sleeves. But I am using the Craft Smart Value yarn in the color Sage. So it's the bargain brand from Michaels. And the reason why I picked this is because I know it's washable, and I know that mom of expected baby really likes this sage green color. So I actually have some ivory cream to go with it, and I'm thinking either I'll do like the trim on the neck, the sleeve cuffs, and like the bottom of the sweater in a rib with the ivory, or I'll make contrast sleeves for the sweater. So this ivory is going to be in there somewhere. I'm just not 100% sure where I want it yet. And then I do still want to make a baby blanket, but I decided to go for a baby blanket yarn that I've used before and I know that it works. So this is the Yarn Bee Baby Bee Lots of Dots. This is one that was clearanced out from Hobby Lobby, so they might not have it anymore. But this is the color Dewdrops. So it's mostly white with pops of coral, that sage green, gray, and like a peach, like pastel-y color. And then I have a gray in the same, oh no, this is a different yarn. This is the Charisma yarn from Loops and Threads in the color Mist. But I have used that combination of yarns before in a baby blanket and it turned out really good. I think I had one that was like shades of brown and green, and then I did a green trim around the end. So yeah, those are I'm checking my notes to remember what I was supposed to talk about in this cardigan. I talked about my failed projects, I talked about the baby sweater and the blanket. Let's talk about some crafting goals for this year. So I was really inspired by both Nitty Natty and a new channel I found called Stitches and Starlight, which I had to bond over the like Stitches and blank username. But Natalie from the Nitty Natty channel in 2022 decided to drastically decrease her stash. And then Stitches and Starlight is also planning on doing the same for 2023. Natalie's goal was to get her stash as close to 0 as she could, meaning like 0 complete skeins on her shelf. And Stitches and Starlight has a yardage goal of like what she wants to get out of her stash. But I was really inspired by both of those podcasters, and also just the fact that while I love this craft room and I love that it has plenty of storage, I'm not thrilled with the fact that so much of it is taken up by yarn. So I'm not going to move the camera again to show you, but behind me you can kind of see underneath the shelf there's like a counter here. This counter is L-shaped and goes kind of around the whole room and has cabinets underneath. And right now, like one whole wall of cabinets on that side is just yarn. And I'm kind of torn because I know that there's a certain amount of yarn that I need to have on hand for doing craft fair vending, but that's like all the same type of yarn, and it usually goes out of stash fairly quickly. I just happen to have quite a bit built up right now from moving and not being able to see my whole stash at once and that kind of stuff. So ideally, I would like it if all of my personal yarn, so like yarn that is for projects for me or gifts or like not my mass produced yarn, could fit in this shelf thing up here. And then there is one section of cabinets that's by itself instead of being paired and double wide. I would like it if all of my craft fair yarn could fit in that single section. So that's the goal. That basically means I'm going down from 4 sections to, let's call it 2 from the one individual one, and this section up here probably has about the same amount of storage space, which I think is a pretty big goal. I think it also means that I'm going to end up donating some yarn that I got. And Natalie actually talked about this really well, that it's okay to like, she talked about how you don't have to feel guilty about your stash, like what you do with it is your choice. So I think in the past, especially when I was starting out on YouTube and starting out with the podcasting, there was a lot of, I don't want to say pressure, because like it's not like anybody was making me do this, but there was definitely a culture built within the YouTube yarn crafts community that like you go to the big Hobby Lobby clearance sales and like you try the new yarns that are coming out and all this stuff. And I think I'm coming to the conclusion that that's just not my crafting style. Like in my last apartment, I wanted to have the yarn wall like everybody else had, where it was the little like block bookshelves full of yarn behind you as your podcast background. And yeah, it's really cute, but it means you're storing a lot of yarn. I also realized that if my yarn is in boxes or in cabinets, I forget what's in there very quickly. So I want to get my stash to a point of where it functions well for me and where I can have some more of my storage space back to put some of my other equipment away. Like right now, my laminator and my Cricut and like a paper tray is out on the counter because it didn't fit inside. I have some of my blocking mats sitting out, which is functional, but also like I'd like to have a place to put those away more effectively. And it feels like I have all of this wonderful counter space, and a lot of it is taken up by stuff that doesn't fit in the storage area. So I would like to fix that. I would also like to decrease the number of like little drawer units I have sitting across from me, or the stuff that I'm like storing under my desk. Overall, I would just like this area to feel still cute and still very obviously a craft room, like with the display shelves, but I want it to feel a little bit more functional and not the feeling that there's stuff everywhere, you know? Like I want this to be a space that feels easy to use instead of like trying to figure out how to rearrange things every time I want to do a project that requires counter space. So I think that's going to be my goal for this year, is to really de-stash, use what I have. I have several like sweater quantities of yarn that I want to use because I want it out of stash, but also because I do just want those sweaters and those colors. I recently did a closet clean out upstairs, and there were 2 sweaters I got rid of that I had purchased like before I started really getting good at knitting and crocheting, like before I started on YouTube. And one was black, one was olive green. They were knit, they were very oversized, very comfy, but they pilled so badly and they were so staticky that I kind of hated wearing them. So I bought yarn in black and in the same olive green to replace those cardigans. But I realized that I kept wearing the cardigans and not making the new ones, so I finally just donated both of them to give me the motivation to actually like get started on the replacement sweaters and make it something that I actually really enjoy. So yeah, that's the like really long version of like why I'm de-stashing, what the plan is for this craft room. But I actually also wanted to show you in my bullet journal, which if you've watched my channel for a while, you know that I for the last 2 years I've done monthly bullet journal videos showing my setup, but I realized for this year that I wanted a much simpler bullet journal. I didn't really want to be spending so much time like making it so decorative and drawing all the little pictures. I wanted it to be more functional than aesthetic, which was just a choice I made this year because I didn't like that my bullet journal was starting to feel like an overwhelming task instead of serving my organizational needs. Kind of similar to like the de-stash process. But I actually haven't even done my January pages yet. I just started with doing my like yearly trackers at the beginning of my journal. But going back to the like original reason I brought this up, I will not be doing bullet journal videos on my channel anymore, but there may be pages that show up like in the podcasts. So if you really like bullet journal stuff, you'll still probably get a little bit here and there, but it's going to be much more minimal than it was in the past. I'm no longer going to do a monthly video of my bullet journal design, partially because I don't think there were that many people watching them, and also because my bullet journal is not going to be that interesting this year. I tried to keep it as simple as possible and make it work for me instead of me working to make it look nice. Anyway, I have created a kind of de-stash and project tracker page for the whole year. I'm holding this up so you can see it, but I'm going to need to turn it around to read the labels. So for each month I have a box of things I need to make, things I want to make, yarn in and yarn out. And I got the yarn in and yarn out columns from Knitting Natty when she talked about her de-stashing, so that I can track the yarn that I'm purchasing and the yarn that I am getting out of my stash and using in a project. But I also wanted my like project management to be in the same place. So like, for example, having the need to make and want to make columns. For this month, my need to make would be the baby sweater and the baby blanket because those have a deadline that I need to finish them by. But my want to make section would be like my something cozy sweater, which I'm still going to come back to that. Yeah, and then if I purchase yarn, I can track it. If I use yarn in a project, I can track it here as well. I am going to follow what Natalie did, where yarn is considered out of stash once it's in a project. So even if, like, you know, I start my something cozy sweater tomorrow as a New Year's Eve cast on and I don't have the entire thing finished, the yarn for it is still going to be counted as out of stash. So that is my like destashing goal and setup, and maybe every couple of months or every month, beginning of the month or whatever, I'll show you like what my progress looks like on that page so that you can see how I'm doing. I don't have a total count of full skeins in my stash right now, but I'm also not quite sure how I want to count it yet because I do have a lot of like worsted weight budget yarn for my craft fair stuff, and a lot of that is in partial skeins already because some of it has been used for projects. So I'm not quite sure how I want to count totals yet, or if I even want to count totals and maybe just focus on the physical space instead of the number of skeins being used. That might be what we do instead. So I'll figure it out. I'll give you updates. It's a process. Let's talk about the something cozy sweater that I have mentioned like 5 times now. So originally, I'm going to talk about Nitty Natty a lot because I watch all of her videos and I think she's brilliant and I'm taking a lot of inspiration from her. But a couple months ago, she did the something cozy sweater, which is a knit sweater. It is actually very similar construction to the baby sweater that I'm working on right now, of it's bottom up, it's in panels, it's not knit in the round, but it's a pretty basic stockinette sweater. But it's meant to be very oversized. So I saw that Natalie made it with like some hand-dyed yarn, but I kind of looked at it and went like, oh, I wonder if there's anything in my stash that I could use to make that instead of going and buying yarn. And that was kind of the initial I should destash thought. Yeah, I don't know where that sentence was going, but that was where I originally saw it. The only thing that I want to alter is the length of the sweater, because the something cozy sweater is pretty cropped and I don't want to do that, but I like the overall fit of it. So I was lucky that I had some yarn in my stash that is way more than the yardage required for the sweater. So I think I can make mine at least hip length, maybe even tunic length if I want to. So on Ravelry, for some reason it said for the size I wanted, it would take almost 2,000 yards, which is what I have. But then when I looked at the pattern, it says that the largest size only needs 1,000 yards. So I have well over 2,000 yards of the yarn I'm going to use, and it's actually right behind me. It is the Karen Cloud Cakes yarn, and it's from the previous release of it that Michaels did. So this color is no longer available. It's the solid light gray. They do have some patterned ones and some different solids right now. And honestly, like, side tangent again, I really wish Michaels would hold on to this yarn because I really like this yarn. I think it's very soft, it's very cozy, but it's still washable. And I really like that, which is why I bought it in the first place, even though I didn't know what I was going to use it for. But I was disappointed to see that they no longer have that color and that it seems like they're going to continue to cycle those colors out. So that, again, side tangent, that has been my frustration with Michaels recently, is it seems like all of these like cool fun yarns that are coming in don't stay for very long at all, even if they are really popular and there's a demand for them. But side tangent over, going back to the Something Cozy sweater. I looked at some measurements for it this morning and realized that for the amount of positive ease that I want in the sweater, I can actually make the medium large size instead of the XL 2XL size, and that'll give me even more yardage to play with. I think I could still do the XL 2XL size and still have lots of yardage, but I might like work up the back panel in the bigger of those two sizes and see how it's going and how much yarn I use, because I really do want it to be tunic length if possible. And I can't get this yarn anymore, so I need to kind of be careful with how I use my yardage, even though like I know I have plenty. I don't actually need to be concerned about it. I'm also using a yarn that's slightly bigger than the yarn called for, so I'll just have to do a gauge swatch and see if my stitch count is going to be the same as what the pattern calls for. There's going to be a lot of adjustments. It might be a project that I have to frog a couple times in order to get it how I want, but I'm really excited to make it. So it's going to be the perfect like oversized, cozy, soft, fuzzy sweater for really cold months here in Wisconsin. It also will be my first knit sweater that I'm making for myself. That was another goal I had for this year, was I wanted to knit a pullover and knit a cardigan. Because I really like my crocheted hexagon cardigans. You're definitely going to see more of them in 2023. I have a couple tutorials sort of planned for more hexagon cardigan designs. But I did want to knit at least one of my cardigans, and I think it's going to be the one with my black sweater quantity of yarn, because I don't want to spend the time doing an intricate stitch pattern with black yarn because you're not going to see it. So that's probably what that's going to get used for. What else was I going to talk about today? Oh, my Sitka spruce cowl. So if you watched Vlogmas, you know that I made the holiday doodle cowl and then promptly dove in and started the Sitka spruce cowl, which are both by P&W Knitwear Designs, Jamie Lomax. Beautiful colorwork cowl patterns. I got about this far on my Sitka spruce cowl, and I think I am messing up the colorwork again. And I don't like how it looks. I don't like how it's pulling. I'm not happy with it. And I can't figure out what the problem is, because actually no, I do know what the problem is. It's just not the problem I thought it was going to be. So I've been working that on double pointed needles, and the pattern says you can work it on double pointed needles, but I don't have, not double pointed needles, circular needles. Those are circular needles. I was working it on circular needles using the magic loop method, which is what the pattern calls for, even though it says you can work it on DPNs if you want to. However, I don't think my circular needles are long enough to do the magic loop method with this pattern, but they're also too long to just knit in the round without magic loop. So I think because of that, I'm bunching my stitches in order to like keep it all on the needles and not lose my magic loop. And that means that I'm not stretching the yarn as far as I need to for my floats on my color work, and that's causing it to pull. Even though I sized up for the color work section, all of that stuff, it's just not looking great. And I really don't want to put all of the effort into this beautiful color work cowl for it to be all like warped at the end. So I think I am going to frog it again. I'm debating at this point if I want to start it again right away or put it in my Vlogmas time capsule. I talked about that at the end of my Vlogmas videos. Basically all of the like holiday projects I didn't get to during Vlogmas 2022, I put in a box to save for Vlogmas 2023 instead of like trying to work on Christmas presents instead of trying to work on Christmassy projects in January, because I knew that wouldn't be exciting for me. So I'm definitely going to frog it. I just need to decide if I want to work on it in January or if I want to put it in my time capsule, because it's not specifically a Christmas pattern. It just has pine trees and pine cones on it. But also, like, it definitely looks very holiday-ish because of the pine motifs. So I'm leaning towards putting it in my time capsule, but I'll just have to see when I frog it. So if you don't hear me talk about it again until December, that means I put it in the time capsule. But otherwise, you'll see progress on it here on the podcast. And what else was I going to talk about? Socks. I learned how to make socks during Vlogmas. Mentioning Nitty Natty again. I followed Natalie's tutorials for toe-up socks with an afterthought heel. They were wonderful. They made a lot of sense. I felt very confident through the process that I was doing it correctly, which was awesome. However, my socks turned out too big because I used the wrong needle size. So I now have the correct needle size. I have Prim needles in a size 1. So I will be making more socks soon. Actually, I think when I originally set up the camera, I was trying to get it so you could see these on frame, but up here you can see this like row of neon yarn up there. Above it is where I have my sock skeins, like individual ones. So I think I'm gonna try to make a couple pairs of shorty socks just to like test the fit, make sure I have like my perfect stitch count like really down so that I can make socks more easily. Also the wrong side, the neon ones you see right here, I would like to use those to make some contrasting heel and toe socks. There's actually like a light blue that also goes with that set. But I really enjoyed making my first pair of socks during Vlogmas. I think other than the fact that they're a little too big, they turned out great. I was really proud of them. And they weren't as overwhelming as I thought they were going to be. So that was really good. I was really happy that I was able to do it and feel good about making them. So I would definitely like to make some more, especially since it's still it's going to be pretty cold in January and February. Right now we're having like a weird 40-degree day. Yesterday was in the 50s for whatever reason. But I would love to make some more socks to make sure that my feet stay warm, but also get really good at them, because I think that might be what I give a lot of people for Christmas next year is knitted socks. So I want to practice with my own size before I start making them as gifts. But yeah, socks were very exciting. And did I lose my sticky note? Yep, it's on the floor. There we go. What else was I going to talk about? Some upcoming things for the channel, just to kind of give you a preview. So like I said, this week you're getting my empty house tour, but I also have a couple of tutorials kind of planned out. So if you were a fan of hexagon sweaters, you're going to get some more in 2023. I'm planning at least 2. One of them is going to be a new variation on the hexagon cardigan using a different stitch pattern, just like I did for the moss stitch hexagon cardigan. The other one is actually going to, hopefully, if I can figure this out, be a way to add a decorative border to a hexagon cardigan, although I think with the way that I have it set up in my head, I think it would be something that you can add to any cardigan. It wouldn't necessarily have to be a hexagon one. So you can look forward to those. And in addition, I wanted to start a couple of new concepts on my channel, because I found last year that I was overwhelming myself with finishing projects so that a video could be aired. And sometimes that meant that I was picking projects that weren't necessarily like what I wanted to be working on at the time. I was picking it based on whether or not I thought it would be a good video. So I wanted to adapt some of the video ideas that I have to give myself opportunity to create content for you while also just doing the things that I want to do instead of being so focused on whether or not the like finished product is shown in the video. So I'm doing that in 3 ways actually. We'll see like how many of each type of video I end up doing. But the first one is I actually really enjoy watching silent craft with me videos where whoever's making the video just sets up the camera, has like a cool background, and they just work on a project for 30 minutes. And I kind of just use that as a timer when I'm working on something and it feels like someone's like working with me. So I have a couple of those planned to just do some relaxing videos that you can use as a timer just to have some pretty music in the background and just work on the things that I need to work on, but also make it into a video. And then the other 2 ideas, they kind of came into my head at the same time. But the idea was like to have more videos that I could film in one sitting instead of the filming process stretching out for several weeks because I'm making a giant project. So that brought me to 2 ideas that I'm hoping to try out. One of them is doing a series of 1-day makes where I take small projects that I want to work on and show you the whole project start to finish, but not have it take like 3 weeks to film. And 2, to do like try it videos where I'm trying something for the first time, maybe learning how to do it, walking you through like the first couple steps that I do. And again, not really necessarily to show a finished project, but just to show you the skills that I'm trying to learn as a crafter. Other videos that you might end up seeing this year are, I've got a couple of large batch orders that are going to be coming. One of them I still need to talk to the shop owner, but there was a boutique in my area who expressed interest in doing a bulk order from me. So you'll probably get a video of the process for filling that bulk order. And then I also have a bridal shower that I am helping plan, and I'm going to be making some of the favors for the bridal shower. So you'll get some more, those are kind of like my craft fair videos of like, you see me make a lot of things all at once. But they also don't usually take that many days to film because they're all like small, quick projects, usually using my knitting machine. I'm just showing you like how I organize everything, how many I need to make, stuff like that. So I think it's going to be an exciting year. I am also really, really hoping that by the end of 2023, I will be monetized on YouTube. I know I keep saying this, but I am like inching closer to that goal. I'm there on the subscriber count. I just need some more watch hours. So if you can like put my playlists on in the background and mute the volume just to boost my views, or even just like and leave comments, that really helps the YouTube algorithm see my videos and show them to other people. So that'd be great if I could actually start making a little bit of money off of YouTube in 2024. Wait, what year is it? It's going to be 2023. 2024 is the year after. So the goal is to be monetized by the end of 2023. And I think I can get there. I feel pretty good about that. So we'll see. But I think that's going to be it for this week's podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Again, I pre-filmed this a little bit because I have a full week of subbing next week. If you watched my Vlogmas videos, you know that I'm also a substitute teacher in addition to all the other random stuff that I do. So I'll be subbing the whole week next week, which is also the first week the kids are back from break. So it'll be a little chaotic, but I will survive. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video, and make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks everyone. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.